this is Trent Hart from Tovani Hart, and so this is the commission, and Trent's going to give us a little, and Brandon, or however they're going to, and I'm just going to push buttons. So you take it away and do what you want to do.
Song and dance starts.
Yeah, well,
Music?
right on. We haven't provided an update really to leadership on the state status of your project, and so just first and foremost, we're extremely thankful and appreciative of being able to be part of your team. So local firm in Olympia, been in business for a handful of years, and so it's nice for us to be out here continuing to do work, and so we're thankful. The project, as you all are aware, as the original warehouse space had burned down, and when we put in a proposal to do the work for you, we understood and still understand it's a 30,000 square foot facility. We wanted to replace the old wood and steel building with a pre-engineered metal building. There was a set budget that we had some understanding early on of that cost estimate was done for insurance purposes. We were a little concerned at that time about the number based on the size of the building and some of the components that the port had defined that these elements need to be included in our replacement building. And so we pulled together a team, a complete design team that includes surveyor, a civil engineer, a geotechnical engineer, local septic designer, mechanical engineer, electrical, and structural, and then your architect. We also, because it is a pre-engineered metal building, there are a handful of capable suppliers, designers that do pre-engineered metal buildings. But as long as the list is, there are really a couple of them that stand out as really having some expertise in doing pre-engineered metal buildings as far as a parent design company. Nucor is one of them, and Nucor has provided the steel in that metal building package to the port elsewhere on your properties. And so it's not often either that you get to reach out to that entity to figure out some of the design components to get things really to a point where they can be defined with cost. And so we were fortunate enough to be connected a little bit with a general contractor that is familiar with Nucor, that's also familiar with the port, where we've leaned on them to do some level of review on our drawings to make sure that it's compatible, consistent with Nucor. And it's also something that the general contractor is not seeing anything that's different, weird, or missing. And so the whole goal for us at this first juncture is to come up with a design, get it estimated, so it's back to you all to understand, here's really what you asked us to do, this is the cost of doing the structure. And again, I'm not selling the metal building, we're just the instrument to design it. Part of the process that we've also included was to make sure that we've got a design package that's well defined to get into Mason County and have them look at it from the site plan review standpoint, from a planning position, looking at the zoning, looking at stormwater infiltration treatment, also making sure that we've got emergency vehicle access, and then through the building department, a huge change that you do need to be aware of is code changes. And so I think it was the 15th of March where there was a new adopted code change. And the big deal is energy. And so Washington State is becoming and will continue to become more stringent with requirements for energy. And so if you're heating a building, how you preserve it, you can't have a whole bunch of windows that are going to let it all go unless they're insulated. There's a lot of provisions. The consumption through electrical use through lights, supplementing that with skylights, structure and capability of supporting of photovoltaics on the roof, as an example, EV charging stations. So there's a long list of things that cost money that weren't there at the time, after World War II, when that structure was built. It just, wasn't taken into consideration. So we have kind of an approach for code minimum that is incorporated and wrapped into our design, and that doesn't mean we're cutting corners. That doesn't mean we're avoiding something that should be recommended. but as a basis for where that project is as a code minimum is what we've estimated, what we've got a package built around to present to you then today. So Mason County's aware of it. There aren't any major hurdles that weren't anticipated, and the ones that, one that had presented itself is we've got a path moving forward to address that, and that has to do with the building's height. And so we can talk about that in a little detail too. So those are historic photos I'm sure you all are way more familiar with. And then the next slide shows again in plan view, again, things you're very familiar with is the location. And then on the right side just shows that 30,000 square foot new building. We are approaching it to be able to break it up into 3 suites.
Thank you.
And a couple of the drivers are is that center bay in the east-west direction that would go right through that 29,900 square foot node is a bridge crane. And so that bridge crane is running east to west. And the reason why the building is as high as it is has to do with the requirements of that bridge crane. And the driving requirement is its pick height. And so it can grab a mining tongue, it can grab something that heavy fabrication would be doing in the building to be able to, assemble and erect a structure that they're fabricating that is up to 30 feet tall. And then it would be broken down within the building and then shipped out either through lowboy on a tractor trailer that would back into the facility, be loaded, and then leave. The driver still, once the thing leaves, whatever it is not intended to go over overpasses. It's intended to travel through the state route or on the interstate, so going under bridges. So it is the ability to assemble large components for heavy manufacture inside of the building, and then that 30-ton crane. So its components and its ability to be built there with all of its clearances underneath the pre-engineered metal building starts to define the size of the box. And so the structure that goes over that crane, and minimum roof slope that we're able to achieve is what's included in the design. Still will adequately drain, but we're at 44, almost 45 feet high to the ridge. Other things to note here is that with the building's replacement, we will be demoing out the entire tarmac that is underneath the original footprint of the building. We will expand some of that removal of asphalt to capture some abandoned structures that are on site too. There are a couple of vaults that don't have traffic rated lids. There is an existing building to the west of the property that still is standing today that will be included in the demo for this project, just for clearance of a building that needs to go. There aren't clearance requirements that it must go to accommodate building this building, but it's in a vicinity though to improve the site. And then there's also an existing foundation that's up in that kind of darker finger of parking lot that we will capture too, just to restore the asphalt pavement and get everything kind of up to snuff along those 3 garage doors. Anytime throughout this, if you have any questions or something's not clear, by all means ask.
I was going to say, you can see the building he's talking about, it's going to be demoed.
Oh, the little white one?
Yeah,
In the middle of the parking
and
lot?
that was planned
Okay.
even before this discussion of
Oh,
the new
okay.
building. Yeah.
What is building height right now?
So at the highest point before the fire, of course, it was about 28 foot high at the kind of the upper part of each sawtooth roof section. It's less than that, obviously. The lower section is probably a little over 20.
Right, and code is what, 35?
Code, for some reason, the airport industrial zone, which is our zoning here, allows up to 36 feet, whereas industrial zone areas in Mason County allow up to 45 feet. And so our process right now, which is kind of recommended by one of my contacts at Mason County, is that we ask the county formally for a development request, an amendment to the development code for the airport industrial zone, which would be applied throughout the county, anywhere that zone exists. Well, it just so happens the only place that exists is here, San
It's right here,
Field on
yeah.
Fort property, but, and so, we're trying to decide what height we wanna ask for. We, my first thought was we could ask for 45, because that's, what the standard is for the industrial zone, but that our building needs to be just a hair shy of that. And so we're thinking about asking for even more than that height. The main reason there's a height limitation is that you don't want to obstruct, other people's views and things like that, and it can create other issues. But we're kind of at this location in particular is a long ways from any homes or houses or anywhere. It's not going to be blocking anyone's view. No one would even notice probably if it was 50 feet high in this location.
Is there any FAA requirements on that, Brent?
Yeah, so anytime we build structures here at the airport, we have to do a notice of construction with the FAA online 7460 form. And so what they do is they evaluate to make sure that's not penetrating any FAA imaginary surfaces, they call it, like FAR Part 77 surfaces. I know that it won't, just based on other construction we've done in the vicinity. And so I'm confident that's not gonna be an issue, but yeah, so when I'm still kind of writing up the request to the county, but what I'm gonna say in there is that we would ask for a higher, permitted maximum structure height of at least 45 feet, possibly more. However, regardless of the maximum allowable structure height, we would not be penetrating any FAA services, and we would get their permission and continue to work diligently with DOT Aviation, FAA, the port, and obviously the city and the county to make sure we aren't creating hazardous airspaces. So if our hope is that the county will approve that amendment request, and then we're golden. If that doesn't happen for some reason, plan B would be to go for a height variance. And in that process, you would go before an independent hearings examiner, and they would kind of analyze.
Case by case basis.
Yeah, so that's seems a little more risky to us, which is why we're gonna try plan A first.
A question. The new grade, the new foundation, will it be +2, +3 above grade, above ground level grade?
Well, on the north side of the building that's close to the existing structure that's remaining, we're very close to our finished floor being really very close, a couple inches off of the existing grade. As it heads south towards the main runway, it drops it's like 2.5 feet. And so, but over the length of the building, I mean, it's pretty minimal slope. And so, we do have a grade change. It'll be a finished flat floor across the entire footprint of the building. And we've got some exit doors that have a gentle ramp that come out of each one of them that I'll point out in the next slide.
And will there be a environmental basin, drain basin?
And there isn't anything new that is necessary if you're thinking like a rain garden or some other sort of like detention pond, something to collect and capture stormwater.
To mitigate the rainwater into the water field, into the water, yeah.
Yeah, it's all existing impervious surface, and it has been since 1942, and that was all, concrete. All that concrete was laid, and so, we're not creating new impervious other than some minor paving out front. You can see there.
I know our ground perks.
So we're not really going to need to do much of anything for stormwater because it's already impervious. It's already currently treated on that same footprint.
What the project does include that is a challenge today is that during a significant rain event to the east on the tarmac, all of it sheet flows, majority of it sheet flows towards the building. And so there is some pavement that is included in the work. If you see that little finger of gray to the right of the building, that's in the emergency vehicle access that will and does remain. but we're adding some additional catch basins, and we'll fold the asphalt into those catch basins to accommodate some of that sheet flow from a rain event, just so it doesn't come into the new building.
The original structure was built directly on that tarmac, concrete apron, and had no foundation at all. They just bolted those columns right onto the existing slab
onto
that
the
was there
runway.
from 1942.
Right.
And all that water would sheet drain right up to the building, and so, as just kind of a temporary thing, port staff, we saw cut and put in a big drain pipe and, tried to help alleviate that problem, but, it's no surprise that building and others around it would have sill plates rotting out because they'd have sheeting water right up against them. So obviously, this new building will have a flat floor, unlike the other one. It will be flat and smooth compared to what was there before. So yeah.
Thank you.
Sure.
Yeah, you're welcome, Dale. So the next slide shows the floor plan of the building in the upper left corner, and just orientation. If you see the north arrow down in the title bar there, it is to the right of the floor plan. So again, we're defining the replacement building as 3 separate suites. It doesn't have to be, it can be one tenant that needs the bridge crane, but if they are broken up, subdivided, then we're planning for 3 of them. And so we've got 2-hour separation walls, 2 of them that separate those 3 suites, and then again the bridge crane will be in that center bay. The base design will include a parting door, a bi-parting door that is on the west elevation, where 2 more will be planned for, where the pre-engineered metal building will accommodate adding those doors in years to come, but they wouldn't be part of the base bid unless it's driven by a prospective tenant. So we have pricing to include those additional doors if it's desired, or if bids are competitive and we can add them, and you put them in today, but we don't necessarily have to. We've included bathrooms again for each suite, and so if it's one big volume, there is a minimum fixture count that we have to provide for the overall box. But once we subdivide it, then each one of those tenants would need to have their own facilities, men's and women's.
Sure.
And so the one suite unit C on the right, you'll see kind of a lighter gray box in the upper left corner of that suite. And that's that restroom that isn't part of base bid right now, but could be added. But all of the underground, all of the piping that would be going to the new septic drain field, the replacement drain field, would be installed. So all we would do is put in the finishes, erect the walls, put in the water tank, and we're up and running with the restroom. To the right, and in the middle right, just gives you an indication of the elevations then, and the scale. We dropped in some silhouette people just to kind of, it is a big building. It's a big volume, and it's very simple in its construction, and again, it's an effective, durable structure that is over a bridge crane.
Am I reading that right? It's a 212 pitch?
Yes. That's right. Yeah.
That's the minimum that we're able to go with the metal roof. And then we've got a section cut through it, so again, you can kind of see the widening and tapering of the pre-engineered metal building frame, usually referred to as bents. And then what we don't see in that section is that there is a need. Our plans include it, we're just not showing it in this graphic, but there will be skylights, and there will be structure to accommodate an array that would be on the south-facing facet of the roof for PV, photovoltaics. And so that again is a code requirement. There's a certain amount of area on the roof that needs to accommodate that addition. The code actually will include the north facet. Here in the northwest, it doesn't work so well, but I'll keep that to myself. If there's no questions with these drawings, then cost estimate. And so breaking out the estimate into a handful of different subcategories under division, just from foundations, superstructure, exterior closure, roofing. Big items are like electrical is big, and we're changing the service, and PUD 3 has some specific requirements that are expensive. In addition to some of the PV that we talked about, the plug-in for the electric vehicles or the charging stations, there's a bunch of elements that increase the cost, including each one of those suites has its own service. So all of that would be installed today, and there is a back and forth between PUD 3 on 600 amp service per or an 800 amp service. And so we're still ironing it out, but the estimate includes an 800 amp service. There's special construction, demolition on site, and includes general requirements. So we are still carrying a design contingency of 10%. That's just a protective number if something crazy pops up or something needs to be added. We think that the simple design is pretty dialed in, more so than just a schematic design level. But that contingency is a recommendation at where we are. And then with markups, overhead and profit for the GC, we end up with what we would refer to as a maximum allowable construction cost, a MAC. Total construction cost is almost 8.9, 8,873,000. And the next couple of slides just drill into the detail. If you're not already sleepy, it's usually where I start to get exhausted, but it's a very well detailed cost estimate that is pulled together. Each one of the design disciplines had done their own estimate based on their discipline that went to our cost estimator to include their figures and vet them before they've been included in this estimate.
Can we get a copy of that? Is that
Yeah,
part of our
absolutely.
Deliverable report?
Yeah.
That'd be nice.
Yeah, because I can't read it from here.
No.
I will add that just from a cost estimator standpoint, if you look at the overall number at 8.8, and then you get into the detail of an estimate, and I'm just going to make something up, is that say there's sheet vinyl floor in the bathroom, and we've got 6 bathrooms, and you don't like the cost per square foot number. Well, it's really not $1.10. I think that should be 80 cents a square foot. Beating up the one minimal small item, it doesn't have a huge impact. I mean, every nickel counts, and please don't misunderstand me. It's just sometimes there is some level of fuzz that does happen in the detail, but it has less of an impact in that
Right.
overall.
Sure.
I mean, big deal is we've got an electrical service number. It's north of $1 million.
Right.
That's an outstanding figure.
Yeah.
And then from there, I think we go back to each sheet, and you can get a copy of that by all means. And this whole package is made available to the board, including the detailed complete set, civil drawings, structural drawings, mechanical drawings, electrical drawings, architectural. So we have a complete design package that we are not page turning through, but this is your project at 8.8. Again, the hurdles that we heard from Mason County, we believe are surmountable. We can cross over them, and I would add it is through a rezone. That's the mechanism.
It's not
that,
technically a rezone, it's a development amendment.
Development
Development
amendment,
regulation
yeah.
amendment.
Right.
Two is particular zone.
Right.
It doesn't affect zones, but it's not a rezone.
Question for you.
Uh,
Current water supply and pressure baselines, is it enough to support that 1,200,000 fire suppression system?
Yeah, we've got really good fire flow. There's a 16-inch ductile iron main that comes right off of our reservoir, the standpipe up on the ridge. It comes right by this building.
I know you
Yeah.
got extra flow height going up to that higher
Oh,
Correct.
yeah.
roof, and so
Yeah.
head pressure is, You gotta fight that.
Yeah, it'll drop a tiny bit, but not enough to matter. We've got about 70 PSI residual in this area roughly.
And Dale,
to start with.
what I didn't share with you, which I'm glad you asked the question, is that we have included as a layer within the design for the fire sprinkler suppression system, the fire, is to maximize each of the 3 suites with high pile rack storage. So the slab, the structure of the floor is capable of carrying a loaded high pile rack storage system throughout the entire footprint of this building. And then as an advent with the fire code is that every single bay within that vertical high pile rack has to be sprinkled independently. And so there is an overall water load that needs to be taken into account to offer the port flexibility to accommodate a future tenant if they wanted to maximize it for like an S1 use. And so that's part of the calculation in reviewing the capacity of the tanks on the hill and then the fire pressures available in the adjacent line.
But what they used to call it is a hanging daisy chain, where they have sprinklers that they would set at different heights for occupancy needs, right?
So, well, whatever the term is, I haven't heard that one, but effectively it's the same. Our base design will just have the main pipe go through.
Right.
So you tap into it to accommodate the pile storage if you need to later.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you. Yeah, so in your project, where does this come as far as finished percentage-wise? I mean, is this the first third done, or the first half done, or the first 3/4, or where are we at with that?
Technically, just by title, I would say that we were closer to about 40%,
Okay.
35%.
Okay.
But again, we've been designing a structure and a design package that's it's almost $9 million.
Yeah.
But we've defined it early on when we were hired as a $5-ish million project.
Right.
So
this is a little bit of the waving the red flag that
no, well,
what we want's gonna cost
we
more.
knew that there would be some verification.
Yeah.
And that we knew that we needed to plow forward to just confirm everything that is
Right.
needed for the replacement, and we've got real. But there isn't anything within the design right now that I would say is, unnecessary.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
Okay.
just,
This
and
doesn't
also,
surprise me.
to be clear, the 5.7 million, that was an agreed insurance payout for replacing exactly
What
what
we
burned
had.
down
Yeah.
with today's costs, but meeting all current code requirements.
Right.
We, none of us thought that that's what it would cost us to build what we wanted.
Right. Right.
And so, we're
I
getting a
get
whole
that.
lot more out of this building than what we had.
Yeah.
Certainly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Thank
Thank
you
you.
so much.